So you guys may already know, or maybe you don't know, but there's this cuck on the internet named Jonathan MacIntosh. I think that's his name. Honestly, if that's not his name, it's good because I fucked up his name. But if that is his name, well, John, go fuck yourself. But really, then I do want to talk about this video because this video is all sorts of wrong and just needs to be addressed on this channel. And just so I can stop the stupidity from spreading any further than it already has.
During your travels around the internet, you may have bumped into the term toxic masculinity.
Yes, I have run into this term.
It usually shows up in connection with particularly abusive male behaviors.
No, it shows up in feminist hate speech just to hate on men for being men.
So things like harassment, homophobia, sexism, or violent outbursts.
So basically just being a bad guy in general. It has nothing to do with just being a guy, it's just being a bad person.
But what does it really mean? Well, let's find out.
I'm only gonna say this once. Fuck your intro. It's bad.
Now, since there tends to be so much confusion and defensiveness surrounding these two words, I think we might need to start off with a really clear example. Something that we can all agree on.
Okay, look, I get your joke, but it's not funny, because Hillary Clinton, every other word out of her mouth is a self-contradiction.
Okay, yeah. But honestly, I think he needs his own video, so maybe something else.
The only person in the presidential election who needs their own video is Hillary fucking Clinton.
What do you think you're doing?
Okay, that's gonna work. This charming fellow is Biff from the Back to the Future series.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Huh? Think, McFly, think!
Okay.
Are you shitting me? You're using a character who is not designed to be likable.
So let's start with the word masculinity itself. Very broadly speaking, masculinity is a set of behaviors and practices that have traditionally been associated with men and manhood in our culture, and that includes both positive and negative things.
By that logic, where is toxic femininity?
Toxic masculinity, on the other hand, is a loose term that's used to refer to a subset of those behaviors which are harmful or destructive. It's often used as a sort of shorthand to describe behaviors linked to domination, humiliation, and control.
So guys just being physically stronger? What surprise is there?
It's marked by things like emotional detachment and hypercompetitiveness.
Look, Biff, somebody already asked me to the dance.
Huh, that bug George McFly?
I'm going with Calvin Klein, okay?
Calvin Klein. No, it's not okay. You're going with me, understand?
Get your cooties off of me!
When are you gonna get it through your thick skull, Lorraine? You're my girl.
It's also connected to the sexual objectification of women, as well as other predatory sexual behaviors.
You know you want me to give it to you.
Shut your filthy mouth. I'm not that kind of girl.
Oh, well, maybe you are and you just don't know it yet.
It's also linked very closely with aggression, intimidation, and violence.
You want to take a poke at me?
Damn it, Biff!
So that is a villain doing villainous things. What surprise is there?
The modifier toxic is used to highlight the fact that these kinds of behaviors carry with them some potentially serious and even deadly consequences. Much of this type of masculinity is relational, and as such, it's mostly defined in opposition to anything culturally associated with women, which is why toxic masculinity is driven by this overwhelming fear of emasculation.
That's where you're wrong, MacIntosh. Toxic masculinity is a word used by feminists just to say that all guys are bad, just for being guys.
That is to say, the fear of being perceived by others as feminine and therefore unmanly. Many of the most popular male heroes in movies are depicted as engaging in at least a few of these toxic behaviors.
Yeah. Now let's both play.
But because they are the good guys, their actions are framed as admirable displays of strength, power, and manhood.
Chances are all those three things you just listed, none of them you have.
It's like Doc's
Yeah, I
always say.
know. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Your point is what? All I see is a teenager being a teenager.
And even when those behaviors are not celebrated, it's often framed as acceptable or normal and then excused as just guys being guys or boys being boys.
Two things. George McFly on that tree definitely needs to be checked out because, George, that's not normal. And second, I think you're forgetting villains are villains.
Just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, I want to make something absolutely clear. This term is not a condemnation of men or manhood.
What rock are you living under? Now it has become a condemnation of men.
Because again, toxic masculinity only refers to a particular set of harmful actions and cultural practices, and none of those behaviors are inherent or biological traits of men.
First off, yes, they are. But I would like to go through your list of toxic masculinity and just point out some things. Emotional detachment, well, men do have a track record of being a bit less emotional. So there's that. And while, yes, that is not by default a bad thing, because men are natural leaders. And in order to do that, they do need to not let emotions make the best of them. Uh, Hyper competitiveness is also in this, and they probably, and same with aggression, they need this for sports, and is not, it's not by default a bad thing. Intimidation is not meant to hurt anything, so it's not violent or anything like that. It's, in fact, it's actually a measure to stop violence. It's just say back off. Now, violence, sexual objectification is also is non-existent, if you ask me, because they're just using that. Guys, it's sex sells. That's all it is. So really, only two of your things on the list is even remotely there.
There's nothing toxic about just being a man, but some men do act in toxic ways. So, in other words, toxic masculinity is not something that men are, rather, it's something that some men do.
Yes, let's just ignore the fact that women just throw this term around.
Alright, so let's return to our friend Biff here. Now, Biff is an obvious buffoon. I mean, he's a schoolyard bully, he's like a cartoon villain. His actions are easy to spot and understand as damaging, because really, toxic masculinity is what defines him as a character.
So since you contradicted yourself by calling him a buffoon, it's important to know that toxic masculinity is not what defines him as a character. It's just him being a villain, and what part of him does not reek, hey, look at me, I'm a fucking villain.
At every point in Back to the Future, there might as well be a giant neon sign hanging over Biff's head that says, hey, this is the bad guy.
There pretty much was. You want to know what that was? Looking at him as a character.
So that's really easy. But things are rarely so clear cut. In the real world, all kinds of men can participate in toxic masculinity.
I think it is important to realize that the world that you're living in clearly isn't the correct one.
Including seemingly normal guys who might also be nerdy or charming or witty or intelligent. Since toxic masculinity is a set of behaviors and not a biological trait, the real men who participate are not really one-dimensional character archetypes like Biff, and they usually don't do all of the things on the list. Okay, well, sometimes they do, but usually that's not the case.
You do realize that Donald Trump generally fits none of those categories, and even if it did, he still is a lot better of a presidential candidate than Hillary Clinton will ever be. I think I'm using common sense when I say that.
There's a mistaken impression out there that toxic masculinity means that everything about masculinity is somehow toxic.
It is under feminist rhetoric.
But that is not the case. In fact, the term toxic masculinity is used very deliberately to try to differentiate the more damaging or destructive male behaviors from more positive male behaviors. When it comes to this term, it's really important to understand that it's used to reinforce the fact that there are many different types and formulations of masculinity.
I do hope you understand that women throw this term around, much like rape and harassment. And I need to make myself blatantly clear. It has become a way of just saying, fuck men, just for being men. And please keep in mind that I do have what they call common sense, and I'm able to see that this video is clearly what they call damage control. The cuck really has nothing else to say after this point because, frankly, all of this is damage control, and I just do need to point out that women do like to throw toxic masculinity around, similar to rape and harassment. This video is only damage control. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, just like it. So there we go.